So, I mean, what you've described there, if I can just shift gears a little bit and come through to adoption, whenever any new capability is introduced to the advice market or any other market for that matter, it sometimes takes a little bit of time to get going because you're talking about transforming effectively elements of how advice businesses run. What have you seen as some of the bigger challenges or indeed opportunities around that kind of adoption?
Another really good question. It, I think the first thing we need to realize is that, we're right at the kind of like, and I'm sure you know this better than anybody, Nick, is that we're right at the foothills of this big AI mountain. And the AI mountain is still being built. It's never going to stop, probably. So from that side of it, we need to be mindful of that and realize that we're kind of like right at the start of this process. That being said, it's still a great opportunity. I think one of my key concerns is the white noise that's out there. I mean, there's lots that have said about AI that it doesn't do. It doesn't necessarily think for itself at this moment in time, and all that. The AGI stuff, the artificial general intelligence doesn't really exist as it stands. I mean, so there's all that to kind of like decipher and decode. And what we've also got in a very conservative arena such as compliance, I mean, generally speaking, humans don't like change. Yet bizarrely, we're the best at change. You think about this, why we're so successful as a species. So from that side of it, if we can just embrace more of an open mind to think about, this isn't here to attack you as an individual. It's not going to replace you anytime soon. It's going to augment the good work that compliance and audit officers and auditors do in the marketplace, and supervisors and so forth. Because not only is it going to bring more efficiencies, and it will also bring higher quality data, higher quality MI in super quick time, so that they can make really good decisions, evidence-based practice we call it, and then make the decisions based on, not do we think this is true, do we know this is true, and where's the evidence to prove that? So that's what the AI is there to do as it stands. As I say, it's not as good as it could be, but it's going to get better. And that's why, going back to your previous question, we've got that framework in place to stop, to improve the outputs and keep that human in the loop, which is what we need.
Is there a characteristic of the firms or the people within those firms who've adopted Model Office that sort of sets them aside from other firms who are maybe a little bit more reticent? What's your
Yeah,
experience?
I think the early adopter profile, I think, is the same for any technology, and you remember this from your days, I'm sure, Nick.
Many times.
Yeah, exactly. And they're willing, God bless them, they're willing to give things a go. They're willing to give it a trial. So the most important thing that we do is that we position it and say, look, we appreciate this is new technology. We appreciate you've been doing things in a certain way for a long, long time. We're not here to replace a lot of that. But what we're here to do is, if you look at, for example, and we send out, a diagnostic assessment in which they can answer about what they do with their time around the world of governance, risk, and compliance. And we can then showcase in certain areas that by deploying something like Model Office and do it on a pilot to start with, actually it's going to save them 20% of time. And obviously associated costs over time. And that's a big hook then, because if they start to then test it and trial it, which is probably where we are with AI in overall, when they begin to test and trial it, they begin to actually then play with it and get used to it. And then it can hook them in, to think, actually, I can't be doing without this tool, which we're now getting the feedback from after really, it's only been a year that we've been deploying generative AI in our software. And we only deploy it for a certain part of the software. Not all, we're a tech first business. I hasten to add, we're not just an AI business.
It's really interesting, isn't it? That element where an advice firm thinks this is interesting to that stage where actually they start deploying it, using it in anger, and realizing actually this can be quite transformational to their business, and how you get a firm from point one to point five or whatever it is on that journey. How do you work with the firms who use your tech?
So we look at the pain points.
Yeah.
And we say, where are your burning bridges and where are your key issues? And some of it comes from the regulator. So a good example of that is appointed representative networks. And we've got a couple of, of the networks are using Model Office across all their member firms, which is great from an audit perspective. But we then look at the new AR regime, which is all about governance and oversight. And what was that all about? It's effectively the regulator saying, look, we've looked at you. We don't believe you know your firms well enough from a data MI perspective. Therefore, you need to apply more rigorous systems and controls around that, incorporating consumer duty, SNNCR, and or on the systems and controls piece. So from that side, what you've then got is the ARs, and we view the AR market as a high growth market for obvious reasons. So from that side of it, the appointed representative platform network, should I say, ideally want a platform-like model office employing some form of AI that can allow them to automate some of the audit tasks that they do for the member firms, pre-qualify the audits, push that data back to a central dashboard, build out reg data across all their member firms based on what the FCA are requiring on their information requests, which we do. So we've got a reg data lake, if you like, that are appropriate, not just for AR firms, I hasten to add, but support services as well. And then what you can then do is probably low-hanging fruit stuff, but you can look at what are the areas that you really are struggling with. So client file reviews. It's a classic example, yeah. So we can automate the client file reviews against a taxonomy of documents that are expected in depending on what's being sold. That will rag rate that client file review, and it can sign it off, can sign it on. It can also, as I've alluded to, you can then pull out the documents and look at the templates. So suitability report, pension transfer, AML, best execution, whatever it is, and it will automatically audit that and then produce an output report. And the final thing is training competence, which is a bugbear for a lot of firms because the data is so diverse and disparate and in disparate sources. So from that side of it, we want to avoid firms getting into swivel chair compliance using lots of disparate solutions. The biggest competitor we've got in the marketplace is Excel spreadsheets. So we want to bring them all together and bring it all. And the best way to do that is through integration, like with your good selves. So we can do a deep, meaningful integration, two-way processed. We can do data quality health checks. We can do consumer data analytics across client data, how good the quality is against good outcomes from that side of it. So advisors know that they're going out with a good healthy check on their data, so that their data supports the ongoing good outcomes that they're producing.
Sounds incredibly exciting. Whoever said compliance was boring?
There you go. Absolutely. It's a great place to be in.
So we touched actually a little bit there on how the regulators viewing this, how the advice firms and people within the advice firms are viewing it. Do you get a sense that clients themselves, the end client, is changing their expectation of their advisor because of AI?
I think it's quite early to look at that at this moment in time, but it's a really good area of focus over the next 12 months for sure. I mean, you've got kind of like a plethora of firms already in the advice client meeting notes space and in the suitability report writing piece and annual review letters and things like that. And they all do really great work, and that will start the process for not only the firm, getting benefits from that side of it, from the efficiencies that will produce, but also the clients. If they realize that it's AI generated and they are more expectant of things to become AI generated, particularly the younger clients, the Gen Zs and so forth, then I think it's like a must-have badge. But I think also those clients, it just depends on how they've segmented their client bank, because if they've got not only are they looking at the client bank segmented across the kind of like the services and the product costs and charges and that type of stuff, but also by the behavioral scenarios of their clients, then they'll realize that there are those clients who are, I'm pretty tech savvy. I expect you now to be in that field, but I also expect you to have any problems or issues or like we've talked about on, things like hallucination or whatever it would be. That's got to be, you've got to prove that you have got that in place, that the systems and controls in place. Because the biggest risk, I think, from an FCA perspective now, across on the consumer protection is front and center, is are AI vendors marking their own homework? And if that's the case, then we've got to go kind of like back and look at, well, okay, what's the processes they're using to mark their homework from a compliance perspective and suitability perspective and so forth.